morning. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. I want to thank you all for the birthday love. So much love. Spent much of the day yesterday in Towson. Han Solo is a Monday. Wasn't nobody trying to hang out, so I hung out by myself. You ever hung out by yourself? Of course, some public transportation in the process too. Went to Morgan State, trying to get that grad thing all straightened out. Looks like it's going to be the spring of next year, but we'll get to that another time. Today, we are going to talk about education, but not on the college level. We're going to talk about it on the Baltimore City level. And by the way, as you can see, right there, right there. Got a new website, DonnieGlover.com. So we have a couple of guests coming in today, and we're going to be talking about the Baltimore City public school system. And we have two candidates who are running for the school board. It's my understanding, I'm sure they can explain it better than I, that there are two positions that we're voting. Well, actually, what? 2 now and 4 later. They'll have to clarify that for me. Good morning, Robert. 2. Let's just get to the gusto. How's it work, Kevin? You got 2 candidates that we're voting for now and 4 later, or is it 4 now and 2 later? How's that work?
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Donnie Glover, for having me on this platform. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Damn, man, you got so many letters after that. They gonna call you Kevin Alphabet.
But thank you, young brother. It's my understanding that, and it's interesting because the rules of the game have changed tremendously, the same way that the election dates have moved a couple times. It's my understanding that out of the pool of candidates who are running, 4 will advance to November. The top 4 vote getters will advance, but there are only 2 seats that are readily available to serve.
So I'm not understanding why they're doing it that way. What's the logic?
I have no idea as to their rationale and or their reasoning around this. That information was shared to me. And I tell you, again, things are changing as we're progressing and as we're moving forward. I don't know what their root cause thinking was for that. I don't know if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so Michael, I'm trying to understand. Good morning, Michael Johnson.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Donnie. Thanks again for allowing me this opportunity.
Okay, can you explain? We're voting for 4, 2, 2, 4. How's that work?
Well, the way it's going to be is you'll vote for 2, but it'll be the top 4 that will advance till November. Which is, it's one of the messiest things I've ever seen. And I'm sure Kevin can agree with me that here it is, you vote for 2, but 4 of you advance till November the 8th. And that's how it is. And so we're asking everyone.
Why? What's the logic?
There was actually, when I spoke to the director of the Board of Elections in Baltimore City, there was really no explanation. The other explanation.
How do we do stupid stuff in 2022? I can get it, before the internet, before this, before that. This is 2022, kind of like abortion. Are we making any progress in this country?
You know what, Donnie, I want to say this as I kind of do a deep thinking analysis around this perplexed process. And of course, Mike, good morning again. I'm just glad to be on this platform with you, brother. I think what happened, and Mike knows exactly what I'm talking about, in the event, it's like it's being at the casino where you hedge your bets. In the event that the 2 candidates that certain political entities are pushing are not there, in the event, I think there may be a rationale around we're going to give them a second bite of the apple. I don't know. I could be wrong. And I'm just trying to, wrap my head around the rationale around why they're doing this.
Who made the rule?
The board of the Baltimore City Board of Elections. Those members of that
Armstead Jones.
Sir, no. The board makes the decision. Armstead Jones is the administrator.
There's a state board.
Who? Oh, you talking about
the local, but there's a local board too, Kevin. As we know. Right. The local board made the decision. I agree with Kevin. The state board probably handed down the decision. The local board just made it happen. Because I don't understand, out of all of the history of politics in Baltimore City that I know about, read about, been about, I've never seen something like this. Now, I get it about the nonpartisan. I get that part. Because that part was only because there's never a Democratic or Republican when it comes to the school board races throughout the state. It's always nonpartisan. But there's never a primary that moves that needle. And this needle, I agree with Kevin. And there are people who are in this race who haven't been in the city of Baltimore for 3 years, and yet they're not racking up endorsements because, you can invent any organization to endorse you. But they are getting certain endorsements that sometimes perplex Kevin and myself.
Like what?
Well, like the Baltimore Teachers Union. Here, Kevin and I have been part of the Baltimore Teachers Union. I know me for 16 years. And just the mere activity that we've done within our communities and in schools. Not been a special ed teacher for a year and a half, or not because I married in Arizona and moved here, and then suddenly I decide to run. These are the people who are being endorsed. I would assure you that Kevin, Parson, myself, and even C.D. Witherspoon have sat at the union meeting and did what we would normally do. We are been union guys. We've been union guys all of our lives, and yet you don't even get that second conversation. And I wasn't interviewed at the Baltimore City Public School Teachers. I don't know if Kevin was, but I wasn't interviewed. We were sent a questionnaire. But I never got interviewed or did what they call was walk with a teacher through a school building. I didn't have any of that.
Is it true that City Hall is pushing a Latino and an Indian candidate, Indian as in India?
I'll say this. I know that that one of the two people that you mentioned was going to apply for the application to be a school board member. And they were told, that's okay, just run, we'll back you.
Okay, the reason I ask, and this is no slight to any other race, but this is a majority Black city. Now, I get it. There's a burgeoning Latino population here in Baltimore City. But Black children make up what percentage of Baltimore City public schools?
Yeah, I think, Johnny, I want to go a little deeper in my analysis on this issue. And it goes back to something that Mike said. We're not carpetbaggers, right? And okay, people can come from other places and run. They have a right to participate in the process. But I know if City Hall are backing these cute candidates, I'm very leery about it from the simple fact that I am a seasoned educator in this town and other places as well. Mike has been a seasoned educator in this town.
So
our record of service in this town, I mean, it has been beyond 2 and 3 years. You look at a person's body of work. You look at whether or not they're highly qualified to serve. I think those are some critical criteria that one must look at in order to make an informed decision about who can do what's in the best interest of children. Here we have, for example, on the website, just last week, they posted 40% of our kids are reading at or above grade level, which means that 60% are not. That's a failure. Last year, you had the superintendent, Sandra Lees, come on, and she talked about on WYPR, she talked about how 65% of the kids were missing from school during the COVID crisis. All right. Statistics mean everything. Data means everything. But what do you do with the data? What you do is you deploy a family engagement team to go out, knock on doors, and find out where these kids are. Many of them didn't have hotspots. They did not have the adequate technology. The rollout plan for that was a mere debacle. You also had like 40% citywide of these kids who are not performing at grade level, as I said. You had 35% of kindergarten students failing. Kindergarten.
How you fail kindergarten?
How do you fail A, B, C, D? Mary had a little lamb. Her sheep was white as snow. So we got to do something different and go beyond what has been the traditional model of education. Give an example. We got a high level of students who are homeless in Baltimore City, but we got a high number of vacant housing. In some school districts, they set up housing for homeless students. What and Donnie, you know, I was a school leader over in your footprint at George Kelson. What we did was, because we had attendance problems and we started looking at the root cause, a lot of the kids were missing because of dental appointments. Mom had to go to social services agencies and so forth. So what we did, along with the guy who developed Columbia, we partnered with that Rouse, right? We partnered with that group. We partnered with the University of Maryland Medical School downtown on Green Street in Baltimore. So we had an office set up where their dental students could come in and assess our kids for any dental issues. So the kid was in school getting healthcare services, and then they could leave from that room or that office we had set up and go straight to class. So attendance did not become an issue. As you know, I've been a turnaround principal in this city. We had BDJ Academy, which was one of the best models, and you visited the school and you saw what African-American boys were doing because we were cutting off that prison pipeline. Those are the kinds of models we need to do. We need to get away from some of this stuff that we know doesn't work, and we keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Kevin, I wanted to clarify, you have worked in Baltimore, you've worked in Philadelphia, you've also worked in Washington, D.C.
So I ran the only Black Catholic school that was in Kansas. I worked in Philadelphia. I did some work and still doing some work over in the D.C. Carter. I did some consulting work up in Nevada, Las Vegas, Clark County when Dwight Jones went there.
I got a pop quiz for you. You mentioned Kansas. You were in Kansas?
Yeah, I didn't see Dorothy though.
When I last saw you, I gave you a copy of this book.
Yes, I'm reading, and I just started reading yesterday, and Billy Murphy did the wonderful introduction, and I started to read the first 3 pages. Every time I'm on a train now, I'm reading it, and just to know that Native Americans also had that territory first. I'm learning that also in the book, which I kind of knew. They're Native Americans, hence indigenous people. Your book is well written, is well documented. You know, I was an English chair, so I love the way that your phraseology all in the book.
So look, in Kansas, there's a white hero. They call Kansas, the basketball team, they call them the Jayhawkers.
Yes.
That's because of Captain John Brown. Captain John Brown was busting caps and slavers out there.
That's right.
And it made Kansas very popular for blacks fleeing the Deep South. So Michael Johnson, take me back to this racial demographics. Am I wrong to be concerned that in a majority black school system, City Hall is pushing 2 non-black candidates? Should I be concerned?
I think we should be just as concerned about the mere fact that over 72% of the instructors in the city of Baltimore public school system are white women. I think that's what we should be concerned about. That the lack of black men that are instructing our children, that what our children are seeing, that when you come into the classes, you don't see a green, black, and red flag or a flag of even of veterans. You see a flag from the LGBTQ community in many of our classes.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
There's there are pride flags in the classroom.
Yeah. Rather either stand up on the wall.
When did this happen?
Pardon me?
When did this happen? Because I think it's gone too damn far at this point. Are you talking about elementary school?
There is even a proposal on the state level. I had a long conversation with Bob Wallace yesterday, who's also everybody on the higher education, said to me that there is a proposal to start to teach identity, sexual identity, beginning in the kindergarten within our public schools.
Whose sick ass idea is this?
People who we're not paying attention to.
And people who don't have children.
Well, with people we don't pay attention
to. People don't have
because,
children.
But the people that have children that sending it and have the means of sending their children to private schools. I mean, you can look at your superintendent that's sending their children to private schools. I mean, until
how can people without children make decisions for people with children?
Because people with children aren't paying attention to the people without children who are making the decisions.
If I can just hop in.
Why? A child is 5 years old. They're not thinking about sex. Were you thinking about sex at 5 years old, Kevin?
No, I wasn't. I was playing with G.I. Joes and trucks and Hot Wheels at 5.
Michael, were you thinking about sex at 5 years old?
No.
This is unacceptable.
But I think that what we're looking for on a larger level is here we have a school that says, look, if you don't love our children, you need to get out the way. And here you have,
Mike, say it again.
You know, you have a school system that don't love our children. And because they don't love our children, all of these experiments and all of these nonprofits that Kevin and I will tell you that other than coming into this Thursday, where we'll be at the National Action Network Forum at the Arena Players this Thursday, this will be the first Black organization out of 13 organizations that I've been in front of, that the first Black, because all of the other organizations were white women, white organizations who are running and making decisions in our school system.
So can I just interject? When Martin O'Malley was mayor, he brought in not just zero tolerance. He wasn't just locking up Black people for sitting on their steps. I almost got arrested for propelling a bicycle within the city limits without a headlight. They ran up on me like I had just knocked off a bank.
Me too.
But Andres Alonso was brought in by Martin O'Malley. You remember Martin O'Malley? And he got rid of 75% of the principals.
Of the season.
Yeah.
They pushed him out the door.
Right.
75% at one time. Mm-hmm. No corporation gets rid of 75% of its intellectual institutional capital at one time. But we allowed this Alonso guy, and the police were called multiple times to his home
3 times
for domestic disturbances, but he was still allowed, and he had no children, correct?
No,
not to my knowledge.
I got a problem with that. Where is the outrage among parents?
Well, interestingly enough, the history around how he arrived here was that Martin O'Malley wanted to get rid of Nancy Grasmick, and Lou Grasmick was too powerful in the state of Maryland. He couldn't do it. Charlene Boston Cooper was then serving as the interim superintendent. The board was going to make the decision to install her as the super or the CEO of the school. Right before they came down, they did a bait and switch. They went to Alonso because now you find that O'Malley can't get rid of Nancy, so he has to have somewhere to put Alonso because he promised. Right. Our school system spiraled out of control under Alonso. As you and Mike said, he got rid of a lot of the seasoned principals.
75%
season. brought in young principals with this program that they got in bed with, New Schools, New Leaders program, many of whom have never worked in education, many of whom didn't work in urban education.
What's the first thing a white woman does with a hyper black boy?
I can give you an example. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's cool. I mean, for what you were saying about the principals, I went through 5 principals in 14 years at one school. Not one 9th grade class finished with their principal during that time of Alonzo, Thornton, and the end result was Donna Edwards. But we had 5 principals.
Not Donna
we had
Edwards.
4 superintendents. And we had 6 police superintendents. And
let me answer your question, Donnie, in terms of that question you asked. I'm gonna give you 2 examples of it. And the second example led me into developing the BDJ Academy. One is when I was working in Baltimore County, in Essex, Middle River, and I was representing as a part of the special ed team. There was an African-American boy who was 6'5". He looked like he could have played in The Blind Side. Real nice, real gentle giant. There was a lady who came in from Boston, European. She came in from Boston. First time working in urban education. She made a special ed referral for this young man. In the meeting, I pressed her because I was walking around. I was the only African-American in the building, me and another sister. I had a Malcolm X mug, and that freaked them out. I said, there's no data to really support your referral. She openly said, well, he intimidates me. And I said, how does he intimidate? She said, because he's bigger than me, his size. It almost sounded like I was at a slavery auction, like the bigger they are, So what she wanted to do, to get to the point of the matter, was she wanted to get rid of him in the class because she felt his size was intimidating to her. That's no reason.
Her ass should have been locked up.
She
should have been coming out of school headquarters in handcuffs for that silly slavery Django mentality.
Exactly.
What are we going to do to get parents involved?
We've got to be creative in our approach. We first got to be able to educate.
I got it. Have a happy hour. All white party.
But
all white PTA meeting.
I know Kevin can
all white party
has used this experience before. One thing that we did do at Northwestern was one PTA meeting. I went and got all of the food in the world. Why? Because I knew some parents were coming home and they would have probably went home to cook to take care of their other children. Not only that, we also had raffles for big screen TVs when they were just coming out. You couldn't get in my building that day. But the reason most of the parents told me that they were there was because they had just came off of work. They didn't have to go home. They knew it was going to be something to eat. We have to be able to understand, too, that, a hungry child at home is a hungry child in the building. And even a parent wants to be able to contribute to their child. No parent wants their child to fail.
Michael, Mr. Johnson, I have to tell you that I'm feeling very intimidated by this bullying by non-black people. I'm feeling, I mean, it's like when I pull up at North Avenue in Mount Royal and a homeless guy comes up to the car and he doesn't match the majority demographic of Baltimore City and he comes towards my car, I immediately lock the door because I don't know what this guy wants to do. I'm feeling. So
are you saying our corners are gentrified now?
I can't drive down the street. There's a bus lane. Then you got people wanting to put my children on Ritalin because they're afraid.
I think it goes back to your question. What do we do to get the parents in the building? 2 things we have to do. One, we got to let the parents know that they own the building, that the building doesn't belong to the person.
Block the parking lot. Block all of their cars in the parking lot.
Well,
I've always right there at the parking lot.
I always joke with the teacher friends I know, some educators I know, when they always talk about teachers don't make no money. I always say, drive past the parking lot if you think teachers don't make any money, and you'll see.
Somebody at Baltimore Public School headquarters is making a lot of money.
Well, 22% of the budget that is put out of the Baltimore Public School goes to
What do we need North Avenue for? Because I'm not seeing what they do.
But again, that goes back to what we're saying. If we allow the parents to recognize the fact that they own the building and the community also owns the building, you can almost systematically make community schools based on the community. Don't put in schools that the community can't go to, but put in the community schools so that they can come right out their door. I was fortunate going to elementary school. I walked across the street. I didn't have no elementary school friends of mine catching buses. I didn't have any, even junior high school, we walked to Pimlico Junior High, even if it was a mile or two, because we were just built that way in them days. But what we have done is we've now decided that our education system is to be an average education system. 32 years ago, Baltimore City Public Schools was ranked in the top 10 in the United States of America. Today, we're the bottom.
What year was this?
This was probably right around 82, 83. People, you would hear and look at the reports that would say that Baltimore City Public Schools, and especially let's talk about the history for real. If you look at Dunbar and Douglas High School, people used to come from all over the country to come to Dunbar and Douglas High School. Why? Because they were educating children. See, there's a lot of teaching going on, but there's not a lot of learning going on. So once we can allow the parents to recognize that these are their buildings and what kind of education are we asking them to get for their children, then they'll be able to do it. The PTA.
So I got to push back on you. Parents don't give a damn about public education.
Yes, parents do. Parents
no, they don't.
We've already miseducated a generation and a half.
We don't.
That generation and a half are the parents of those children.
Mike, all we care about is our kid looking fly. That's all we care about.
I don't agree, though. I think that given the opportunity to understand the importance, and we got to have continuing education. Parson and I always say, you can't close that building at 3:30 and think you're educating.
I'm glad you said that. New school, Dorothy Height Elementary School, Dorothy Height. The former John Eager Howard. John Eager Howard had the best basketball in West Baltimore many years. That was the team that went to East Baltimore to lose, because that's what was going to happen.
Madison Square, baby.
Yeah, but nonetheless, John Eager Howard. What I'm getting to is new school. The young people cannot use. The young people who live around the school, according to Coach Rodell Bailey Eel, and I've mentioned this multiple times to Senator Hayes. The young people cannot use the gym. The principal does not want the young people from the community in the school, and I think that principle should be pushed in the inner harbor.
You guys raised so many different issues I wanted to jump in on, but I'm going to.
How dare you come to our city? Tell me, when we were kids, we could go. I lived at Easterwood. We swam down Calverton. We swam at Carver, and we even swam and played basketball up Coppin.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer. Don't you want your young people engaged in something constructive?
Yeah, and so I went to Madison Square.
Where do you get these dumbass people from? Yeah. They are dumb.
Yeah, I would leave Madison Square from class straight out of Madison Square, which they just knocked down that building, by the way. They kept up the basketball facility, but they
these are PhDs.
Yeah, and I walked right out of class across the walkway to William Wells, Sarge, and Mr. Boston, and went downstairs and played basketball directly after school. You talked about what we knew with the family. We need a family re-engagement, and it was something you said about the parents don't care because they want to worry about their kids being fly. We really have to have parent institutes and universities at the school level with our parents, because we have to change their mindset too and re-engage them around the importance of what it means to educate their child. It has to be a true partnership.
You're telling me in 2022, after all our ancestors went through, even in the city of Baltimore, Little Willie, Tom Smith, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, all of these, Reginald F. Lewis, all of the greatness that we have accomplished out of Baltimore, we have been reduced to have to beg a parent to come and check on their kid in school.
There's also been a subtle conspiracy.
Stupidity is this? Where do they sell it?
Jaquanza Conjufu in his book, and that's why I started BDJ Academy, talked about the conspiracy to destroy black boys. There's always been a conspiracy to destroy the black family. You can go back to Dan Monahan and his report.
We were at AFRAM. We were at AFRAM. And by the way, they need to put the red, the black, and the green back in AFRAM and stop cartoonizing our colors. Red, black, green. I don't know where all this other hippie crap comes from.
You remember Samuel Banks. He had it correct. And what we did was you got to put kids at the center of the curriculum. All those people that you name, a lot of schools in this city was named after powerful, influential African Americans. And that was eradicated.
Coming to take the names off. George Kelson, the school you worked at. Who takes the name of George Kelson off a school in Sandtown, given how many people that man employed here in Sandtown? What brand of stupidity is this? Where do they sell it? Nordstrom's, the Rack, Mondawmin, the flea market? Where do they sell this brand of PhD stupidity? And why are we allowing ourselves to keep purchasing it?
And why are we allowing a system or a city to promote squeegee-ness as a career path? That's not a career path. When I was up at CASA and we had BDJ up in Walbrook, they said the kids were out there squeegeeing. I would go out there and get them and pull them back into school because they say, "Hey, Mr. Parson, I'm hungry. That lunch that y'all they serving the school is crap." I said, "I tell you what, come back to school. I'm going to order some pizza. I'm going to order some sodas and so forth because you're better served in the school than out of school. I hear you about the lunch. I'm going to take it out of my own pocket because kids, as Mike talked about, there's a real hunger issue. And this summer, we're going to see evidence of that with this economy. Parents are really going to have to tighten their belt buckles around what they choose to get their kids. And hopefully they're choosing food over the new LeBrons. I'm hoping that's going to be the case.
Michael Johnson, do you foresee COVID causing problems in the upcoming school year?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't COVID. It was the reaction. It was what the expectations for me wasn't high that the school system was going to do what it needed to do. So that's why a few of us started our own online school system while this whole thing was going on the last 2 years. I mean, we made sure that young people, and primarily people in my family, I mean, I've got 22 great nieces and nephews in the system, 22 of them. But we made sure that we, as a family, pulled around and got other people even out the neighborhood to participate in what we call the importance of reading, because reading is the most important thing out of all of this stuff. You can't read, you can't do jack. So yes, I feel that the reaction that the school system did with the pandemic was incredibly incompetent. I love the way that Howard County did it. Howard County opened up every rec center, every community center, every hall, so that it could be smaller populations at that time that you could put in these buildings, but you could still learn. My problem is that we gave students and families computers who didn't, like Kevin said, who didn't have hotspots, who couldn't even get online. But yet we also gave them computers that they didn't know what they were doing.
The rollout.
Were either of you expecting this mayor, being the youngest mayor in Baltimore's history, to be more about the education of our young people?
I thought so.
Yes.
I even if he wasn't my candidate, I did expect that when he got there, and then I expected that from Kirk Smoke and didn't get that either. But I expected that because of his age, because he had came out of Maryville, because he had been on the heights and all of those things collectively, that he would understand that education is the only pathway out of whatever problems our children are having. And yet I have seen, yeah, you've dumped $200 million into this incredible budget that we have, but you ain't followed up on that money. Donnie, you and Parson would not buy a house for $300,000 and made sure that the roof wasn't leaking. And what we've done is we put $200 million into the school system and the roof is leaking.
Yeah, no, somebody's stealing over this. A lot of people are stealing.
Fiscal accountability is an issue.
Somebody should be coming out of there in handcuffs.
Right. Transparency and accountability. Yeah, you are absolutely right. And how we allocate. So we really need to reallocate how we use our money. One of the things you talked about earlier is that we definitely got to pay our teachers more. It's one of the only careers that everybody comes through. I don't care if you are
take the money from school headquarters. You got people over there making 6 figures. They tell me that one man is responsible for like 25 buildings. Is that logical?
Yeah.
I'm talking about maintenance. Is that logical?
No, it's not. It's not. And we spend a lot of money in wars, Ukraine and Afghanistan, and we spend 5 million like the next day, 5 billion, the next day, billions the next day. Why can't we put that money where our mouth is and put it in education, have state-of-the-art buildings, as I mentioned, where you're going to have dental facilities connected to the school. You're going to have outreach centers. You're going to have governmental agencies where they can set up right there, where parents can drop their kids off and go right in and get some services right there. We have to redesign, Donnie, our schools to meet 21st century issues. It's like the Constitution. It was written. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Who is going to take responsibility for Baltimore City Public Schools? Who is responsible? Who? The governor, the mayor,
the board,
parents, who?
The board. If the structure is set up in the manner that it's set up,
because this is my concern. When people run for mayor, education is a #1 issue in Baltimore.
Yeah.
But when you run for mayor, people talk around it, knowing that at the end of the day, the mayor can say, it's the state's problem. We don't have enough money.
But see, we can't keep saying that when we have a lot of money. And right now, we are bulging. We are bulging. If you follow the budget, the $1 billion budget, more than $2 billion budget, which is bigger than 25 countries in the world. We have a budget for 78,000 young people, not the 86,000 when you were in school, not the 105,000 when I was in school. So we have a lot of money, but it's what Kevin said that made so clearly. If we don't follow the money, you will find out that we're miseducating our children based on economic reasoning.
I just want to bring us
that we don't have money. We've got to quit saying that. There is a lot of money in our schools.
I just want to bring us up to speed that Baltimore County, and we're talking about Baltimore City, but Baltimore County has similar challenges.
It's the city with a different zip code.
There are some outgoing board members. Now, I understand that the Baltimore County public school system is 60% minority. But the school board is not racially representative of the 60% minority school system. So consequently, you have non-blacks making decisions like, they're blaming, what's his name, Darrell Williams, Baltimore County school superintendent, for the transportation scenario, which is the national crisis. But they've had 4 black school superintendents, and I know this is a separate topic, but it seems like they lean on every black superintendent they get, even Joe Hairston.
Well, they did Dallas Dance a dirty deal, right? Because what Dallas was doing was nothing that any other superintendent had been doing.
They sent them to prison. They sent the Sioux to the prison for his taxes.
Yep. And normally the IRS make a payment plan with you. That was personal. That was political
Why ain't Trump
assassination.
locked up? Why is Donald Trump not under a damn jail?
He's a
Oh,
white guy.
because
Different strokes for different folks.
why isn't he in jail for treason?
Because the people who would be responsible for putting them in jail don't care about anything like that.
And what about this abortion thing? How in the hell do we reverse a 50-year decision? What is that really about?
And you know what's so interesting about that in terms of the rationale the Republicans are using to reverse that decision under Mitch McConnell? He wants to pitch us Plessy versus Ferguson as an example of how we moved from Plessy, which was a legal.
How did they get these people in
to
charge?
Brown versus the Board of Education to say, well, we can change precedent. Let's look at Plessy to Brown. It's amazing how they think, the thinking, and the people who follow these clowns. They need, when they walk in over there at the Rayburn building and into the halls of legislation, they need to play Send in the Clowns when they come down to Carter, because they are some clowns, man.
And the same thing applies to what's going on in our school systems here locally.
Isn't the truth of the matter is we are self-destructing to the benefit of the KKK. They don't have to kill us. They don't have to undereducate us. All they have to do is leave us to our own devices, and we're busy riding around 50 years old on three-wheelers playing rap music in the middle of the day.
You have to look at, and thank you, Kevin, for allowing me to
go ahead. I'm sorry.
You have to look at, though, all the time is how do we get here? How did we get here in our school system? What changed to make this happen? The crack epidemic caught children at a vulnerable time in our school system, and it caught their parents as equally vulnerable. Then when we moved from the crack cocaine epidemic, now we have the pills and the alcohol. My daughter, who's a principal, used to always say that she could identify the difference between a crack child and an alcohol child. A crack child was real fast running through the hall. An alcohol child was usually slow. And so she would go and do all that she could do to find out what was about the parents and the households. We can't keep saying what the parents ain't doing. We can't keep saying what the structures are not doing. We've got to start pointing the finger at ourselves and saying what we're not doing. And if we're not doing things to improve our school system, or over the years that Kevin and I have been working in the school system, having sometimes felt alone. I mean alone when you come into a meeting and there's nobody in the meeting that has that type of attitude that we have. But we also got to look at, let me finish this point. We also got to look at Coppin University and Morgan University, my alma mater. And have we asked them what are doing with these male teachers who are
I just want to give Morgan, first of all, their school of transportation to come in and fix these damn bike lanes. You got
but that goes what I'm saying. We don't ask. One of the things that Kevin and I...
And they don't ask either. Morgan could easily say, Dr. Wilson could call school board headquarters, hey,
I get that. But if Dr. Wilson and the new doctor at Coppin aren't calling, then we should call. We can't wait for others.
I want to see somebody call these 9 black college presidents that all live between Baltimore and D.C. together.
Yeah. And you heard
me say that summit going to happen. And here's my question for you.
Okay.
Billions of dollars come through Baltimore in the form of nonprofits. All of these nonprofits are doing wonderful things. They're doing really progressive things. They're making life better. They're helping empower poor, socioeconomically challenged communities. Where the damn money at? And what they doing with it? We got nonprofits, more nonprofits than you can shake it. We got more nonprofits than we got drug dealers.
12% of the Baltimore City public school systems go to nonprofits to come in to do programs.
Where's the accountability? And where's the money?
And how is it being assessed in terms
you wearing all them nice jackets? Do you got the money?
much.
No, sir. No, sir, I do not.
I see you wearing a lot of nice blazers.
But Mike asked the key question, how did we get here? And there's always been a conspiracy, again, to destroy us. And there's always a Mickey putting out drink. And so today, the big distraction for our kids.
There's a sellout, just like Margaret Sanger, the lady that founded Planned Parenthood, said that black people are like weeds that need to be exterminated. Then they bring in a black woman CEO to make everything smooth all over. They not about abortion. You can't talk about Planned Parenthood. Not knowing about Charles Galton, Charles Darwin, survival of the fittest, and all of the madness and Nazi Germany and Hitler, who got trained by the U.S. racists.
And white people are finding out they're being outnumbered too.
So that's why that's abortion and gun control. That's exactly why you got the abortion issue. They don't want white women to stop making white babies.
Right.
Because they're getting outnumbered and they're not giving up their damn guns. I don't care how many kids get shot in school. They are not ever giving up their guns. Not happening.
Yeah, that Second Amendment is like the Bible to them. They pray by it.
I want to tell you something. Back in the 80s, they called us crackheads and dope fiends. What do we call the white addicts who are now buying dope and walking the streets of East Baltimore and West Baltimore?
It's a health crisis. They call it a health crisis, and they gentrify the corners because you said you being
the dope fiend.
Which is interesting when talking about mental health too, because we need to address that in our school system and trauma our kids suffer in the community and come to school and we expect for their minds to be fixated on learning. We got to do a better job of putting more counselors in the elementary and middle schools and high schools. I know in the high schools, they pretty much concentrate on them going to college, career readiness, and college readiness. And especially on this last 2 years, and I've done some studies in this area in terms of the impact that our kids suffered from a mental health standpoint under COVID. And we got to address some of those issues as well.
Kevin, what do we say to HBO? They're watching this show right now. HBO has done The Wire. They've done The Corner. Now they've done We Own the City and had the audacity to state that Detective Sean Suter, a Washingtonian, would come to a filthy-ass West Baltimore alley and kill himself.
Well, we know that was a lie.
Therapy for that.
That was a lie, and I understand that's one of the reasons why Daryl D'Souza went down, because he was looking to get to the root of what really happened and not listen to the propaganda which was being promulgated. The Wire and HBO, we got to stop letting people define who we are. And really highlight.
And black people want to be in the movie. Man, I'm going to be on The Wire. I'm going to be on The Wire. I'm going to be on The Wire. I'm going to be We in the City. We own the city. Do you have a deed? Because if you don't have a deed, that means you don't own anything.
But they got weed.
Do you have a weed farm?
Yeah, and we're not. And I know people, probably wouldn't like me saying this. Because of what happened with her. But to Cheryl Glenn's credit, the former delegate Cheryl Glenn, one, Mike and I able to run for the school board. I give her credit for that. And then two, she was pressing up on the state for minority-owned weed dispensaries, right? Because we're not a part of that conversation. That's why I like Maryland. She said, I'm not going to demonize a little black boy for having 2 joints in his pocket, right? When the state is pushing licenses. They're pushing licenses and making money. Everybody else is making money, but you want me to demonize and criminalize a little black boy for 2 joints in his pocket.
And they don't want to give
a lot of credit for that and that type of reform.
They don't want black people to have dispensaries or the growing.
Right. And this stuff is being publicly traded on Wall Street. That's how big this conglomerate is around.
But they don't want black people to participate.
But it's
let me tell you, see, when you carry poison, I just want to say this real quick.
Yes, sir.
When they went to carry poison, remember in The Godfather, what did they say to do with the dope?
Dump it in the Harlem.
Dump it in the black neighborhood. Give it to the N-word. Give it to the N-word. When you go carrying poison, it's gonna spill on you. That's why in my alley, when I see a white addict in my alley eating out the trash, I'm reminded of what goes around comes around. Here's another point. White people, you don't have to live in fear of us. If we wanted to bust your head, we'd have did it a long damn time ago. So stop carrying all these damn machine guns and pushing all of this foolishness. We just trying to live. Are you trying to get some get back on white people, Kevin Parson?
Let me just say this. What I've learned in my studies over the years is that the way we got here and the way Africa got conquered and the way the Native Americans got conquered. The Native Americans were very inviting. They taught them how to plant. They taught them how to hunt. We were very inviting. Africa is the mother lode. It provides all of the natural resources to the world. Bauxite, diamonds.
You know, I had daydreams of me on the coast of Africa with a machine gun and tanks and a whole army and air force, and we busting the first pilgrim that come across the Atlantic.
Right. We were very inviting. We invited people in. And what they did was they got in once we had them come in as guests in their house. Then they took over the house.
No, they started paying us off.
They have a bellicaustic, not all of them. Let me not say all, because it's not universal.
That's like saying all black people are good.
Yeah, that's like saying all. So I understand logic and reasoning, so that's why I had to backtrack that. But some of whom have a bellicaustic DNA, right? What we see with Putin.
What is that?
What? The bellicaustic, warlike. They like war. That's why they like the guns. They like that kind of stuff. They were able to.
We seem to like war too.
Yeah, but we learned.
That's all our rap songs about, killing the brother.
It's learned behavior. It's learned behavior, and we have to love on one another. This is, and we've heard this very fluffy language before. It's only one race. It's a human race. We're living here suffering the same problems and some of the same issues. Many of us. We can get more out of collaboration than we can out of disassociation. We've really got to work together as people. This thing, global warming, is going to affect everybody, lottie-dottie and everybody. This is another big issue because there's going to be food deserts, not only in the city, but there are going to be food deserts in rural America, in other places, because the climate is killing the crops.
I want to hear a rapper make a song. We just took over 2,500 acres of farmland, and I want to hear a rap song. We got a farm now.
Old MacDonald had one. E-I-E-I-O.
We might have to make that into a rap song. Since that's the only thing that we listen to, we don't even listen to Magic 95 no more, do we?
Or 88.9, which is EAA. A lot of us don't listen. I know they're trying to change their platform. But one thing about that radio station, when Kwaisi was there as the director, is that we got information. You know, Malcolm X says, education and information is the passport to our future. And we got to stop listening to a lot of the songs that don't have the right message, because those rappers who did had the right message, they got rid of. They pushed them to the side, and they pushed this narrative about the girls being the B word and guys wanting to be gangbangers. But the ones who were really rapping about uplifting one's people, and there are a couple of them that I'm sure you know, Donnie and Mike, they push them to the side because they don't want the positive messages, because they don't want the Platos and Socrates in our community who actually learned from the Africans. They don't want those people in our community.
Not only did they learn from the Africans, they stole the Africans' books, and then they burned down their libraries.
Alexandria.
That goes back to what we're saying this whole beginning of this conversation. If we're not in control of the information, 40 hours a week, our children are in these buildings. 40 hours a week. almost as much as they are with their parents because they sleep. And for 40 hours a week, we're not educating our children about the history that Donnie says, the history that Parson says.
Samuel Banks had it right.
Yeah, and I remember Samuel Banks and I was on a panel one time, and he said to me, he says, we're not here saying that George Washington wasn't a good president. We're just also saying he had 300 slaves. And so when you start letting the truth come out, when you let the truth start coming out, and that's what these children are not getting in schools. They're not getting in schools what made America, who made America, why we're in the conditions we're in today. We have a curriculum that's damn near the same curriculum from the 1950s. I made this point when Parson and I was at somewhere else. I made this point that Mervo High School gets $17 million a year. $17 million. And they're working with combustible car engines. When if you go to Bethesda, they got a Tesla class out there.
Mm.
And that school is only spending $13 million a year. And so somewhere we're saying we want to be in control of our
Too many
schools,
people are stealing
we don't
from
have a
our
plan.
children.
I'm sorry.
Too many people are stealing from our children. And that's why I like having a Republican governor in Larry Hogan, because I'm seeing more accountability, more questions being raised. When everybody's a Democrat, everybody's turning their head.
Well, maybe that's those Democrats, and maybe there's different Democrats, because I've seen a lot of black people that look just like me, and they turning their heads too. What I need to do is
these are black people I'm talking about.
That's my point. See, it don't matter if you're a D or an R to me. It matters what's in your soul. And if you're loving our children,
Boyd Rutherford, the lieutenant governor, has demonstrated a lot of love for black people in his tenure.
I hear you.
Hey, Mike, you raised a point, and as an emphasis, and you have this debate around critical race theory. The issue is we're not saying don't know about George Washington, because we need to know about everything and all things. Because what I learned when I talk to white people on the train, they know more about us than we know about ourselves. Hello. But
they don't know more about me than I know about me.
I'm just saying. They know.
We know a hell of a lot.
A lot of other people don't know is the things they need to know. So it's not about learning about
George them racists love black women.
How about learning about George Washington Carver, right? We have a George Washington Carver that we don't talk about. We'll talk about George Washington before we talk about George Washington Carver.
There's a line that says real simple that, and there are two houses. There's a house with a lot of big TVs and a little library. And then there's a house with a lot of little TVs and a big library. And we need to change. We need to make that work within our.
Got to read, brother.
We got to read, and that's why we got to start at pre-K.
We all want to be followers. We're all busy looking at everybody. This is where we are. This is when the revolution starts, we're gonna be doing just like this and get shot right in the head, because we're gonna be doing like this, walking down the street.
Well, as they said, the revolution will be televised. I just think that at the end of the day, this is a movement. This is a revolutionary movement.
Do you see the
right people on the school board can be the right disruptors, the right people that can organize the community?
Do you see a race war coming?
Nope.
Do you, Kevin?
I don't. I thought we were almost there a little bit in little pockets with Trump, because one of the things I did like was that not fucking around crew. I don't know if you was researching them, because they was making it known that if y'all want to come this way, we got something for you, because we are trained military men and women. If that's what y'all thinking,
who came out?
They forget about the blacks in the military.
Well, they came out of the Deacons of Defense. That organization came out with my daddy and the other older men were down there protecting civil rights workers and in their own black community after they saw what had helped happen in Tulsa. And so I think that we're and not to step on your words again, Kevin. I think where we are today is this is a revolutionary type of movement. This is not just the point of putting Kevin and Michael Johnson on the board so that we can be down here and say we're on the board. One thing that they didn't do in this board, and I had difficulties with, was they didn't reduce the 2 people from the mayor's appointee. They just added 2 more elected people. What we're trying to do with our 4.0 program is to get 4 more elected people at the next mayoralty election, which would give us 6, and then also the mayor would still have 6. But 2 people, you know, we can't sit here and discuss, and Kevin and I don't do that. We don't be sitting there discussing that we're going to go there and change it. What we're going to say is that we're going to go and let the community know what's going on.
I'm going to give every elected
I ain't got no problem being unapologetically black.
I'm going to give every elected official a copy of this book because we're down there apologizing for our blackness. Mike Johnson, quick question. If you were not running, who would you vote for in the school board?
Kevin Parson of Still and C.D. Witherspoon.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, brother.
See you guys later. Thank you, Donnie.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, all the time. Talk to you today.
Please.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen. Okay.
Good morning, world.